Welcome to Historic Lullabies. I'm so glad you're here tonight. Let's step gently into another time, into a place behind high walls and painted screens, a world where time is measured not by clocks, but by the shifting of light through silk curtains and the soft tread of feet on polished stone. This is a story of stillness and survival, of beauty wrapped in expectation, and of women whose names were never carved in monuments, but who lived whole lives within the quiet hush of the Joseon court. Tonight, you are one of them. You are a concubine in the royal palace of the Joseon Dynasty, in the heart of old Korea. Not quite a servant, not quite a queen. You are something else, something in between. Your world is framed by screens and rituals, by whispers and customs passed from woman to woman. You rise with the first bell, you bow with the second, and by the third, you are already deep in the rhythms of your station. I hope this story helps you relax, maybe even drift off to sleep. But it might also stir your curiosity. After all, what really happens behind those palace walls? What does a day look like, lived by someone whose fate hangs not on her choices, but on the turning of royal attention? If you do happen to stay awake, well, at least you'll walk away with an intimate glimpse into a world few ever got to see. Before we float too far into tonight's story, a gentle like or subscribe would mean a lot, and helps Historic Lullabies keep growing quietly. If you'd like, share where you're listening from, and what time it is in your corner of the world. We have a cozy little habit of tracing bedtime across time zones. Now, take a soft breath in, let your shoulders drop, exhale slowly, and step into the palace. It begins with the light, not the sharp kind that stings the eyes, but a pale, diffused glow, filtered through linen blinds and paper doors. The palace does not wake with a jolt. It stirs slowly, like fog lifting over water. The air is crisp, clean. You can almost taste the faint chill of morning dew as it rises from the stone courtyard. From your chamber, a modest room tucked along the gallery of the inner quarters, you hear the first sounds of waking life. The delicate rustle of hanbok skirts, the faint scrape of wooden shoes on stone, a yawn, carefully stifled, a cough, covered with the back of a hand. You do not speak yet. No one does. Morning in the palace is sacred in its silence. There is a small table already set beside your bedding, a tray of water, a folded towel, warm with steam. You wipe your face, fingers moving slowly, as if not to disturb the quiet that still lingers. Then you begin to dress, not alone, never alone. 2 court ladies assist you, moving with practiced calm. First, the underlayer, white and crisp, wrapped snugly. Then the joggery, your short jacket, in soft pastels, tied with a ribbon, just so. The skirt is last, wide and flowing, its folds like the petals of a magnolia blossom. Today's color is light peach, a sign that no summons is expected, comforting, in a way, safe. They tie your hair into a smooth, low bun, looping it with a silk cord dyed the color of charcoal ink. The finishing touch, a delicate silver hairpin, cool against your scalp. There, presentable, invisible. The early bells ring again, 3 soft chimes. The sound echoes through the stone corridors, bouncing gently from one courtyard to another like a whisper passed in a dream. It is time to move. You step outside. The stone underfoot is smooth and slightly damp. Morning glories creep along the wall's base, their blossoms just beginning to unfurl. You pass other women, some in higher ranks, some lower. No one meets your eyes for more than a moment. This is not rudeness. It is survival. Every glance in the court is a gamble. The courtyard smells faintly of pine needles and wood smoke. Somewhere, Someone is boiling rice. Someone else is lighting incense. A garden sparrow hops across your path, then flutters up into the rafters. You take it as a good sign. Quiet birds bring quiet days. Breakfast is held in the shared hall, not grand, but orderly. Bowls of warm porridge, slices of pickled radish, a single boiled chestnut, golden and smooth. You eat slowly, savoring the calm. Across from you, another concubine coughs into her sleeve. She is new. Her sleeves are still too long. Her gaze darts too often. You look down and let her be. In the distance, beyond the screens and covered walkways, you hear faint drums. That will be the king's main hall. He is beginning his audience with ministers. His world is one of politics and strategy. Yours, of stillness and form. You are not expected to be seen this morning, and that, today, is a gift. After the meal, you return to your quarters. On the way, you pass the corridor that leads to the Queen's chambers. You do not pause. You do not peek, but you feel the shift in air, the slight pressure of walking near someone whose power is unspoken and immense. You slip back into your chamber. A court maid kneels at the low table, preparing your brushes. Calligraphy is the morning's quiet duty. Your hands move carefully, ink pooling on rice paper in smooth, steady lines. You trace the character for grace, then for patience, then for no one but yourself. Longing. It is still morning. The world outside is just beginning to wake. But you have already lived 1,000 thoughts before the sun has cleared the tiled roof. The hours after breakfast begin to stretch, like silk unraveling in slow motion. Outside your chamber, the sun has now risen just enough to warm the inner courtyards. Pale gold light filters through the wooden lattice windows, painting soft patterns on the polished floor. You watch them move, slowly and silently, like shadows dancing across time. It is in these quiet mid-morning hours that the palace becomes its most watchful. You sit by the low writing table once more, but this time not to copy lines of calligraphy. Instead, your hands move over cloth. An embroidery hoop cradles a pale green fabric, and you thread a needle with dyed silk, pink like peach blossoms, gold like ginkgo leaves. The design is delicate and chosen by a superior lady-in-waiting. You are told it will become a pillowcase for a visiting royal. Whether that's true or not doesn't matter. What matters is that your stitches are even small and correct. A court maid kneels beside you, quietly placing a small clay cup of warm barley tea on your table. Her presence is like mist, there, but barely felt. You nod, and she bows, then fades out of the room. You lift the cup with both hands, cradling the warmth. The scent is toasty and gentle. You sip slowly, eyes still on the thread. In the hush of the palace, even the sound of sipping feels loud. Somewhere in the distance, a stream trickled beyond the inner garden wall. You've never seen it, but you've always imagined it clearly. Narrow, clear, flowing between stones smoothed by centuries of water. The sound is not loud, but constant, reliable. It's one of the few things here that feels free. The embroidery continues. The silk thread glides, catches, loops, and holds. You know exactly how many petals are expected in the blossom. You know which direction the stitches must curl, but still, your mind wanders. You wonder about the concubines who came before you. Did they also sit like this, drawing tiny chrysanthemums onto cloth, wondering what their families were doing, wondering if they were missed? You were chosen for your beauty, of course, and your posture, and the way you played the geomungo with gentle precision during that one performance at the provincial governor's estate. Everything about your selection was formal, documented, approved, transported. You did not choose this life. But now that you're here, you must live it precisely. Your thoughts drift, carried on the hum of water and the tiny sound of needle and thread. Outside, a breeze picks up, brushing against the shutters with a sound like soft knocking. The paper window breathes slightly inward, then out again. The door slides open just enough for another court lady to appear. She bows and says nothing. That's how you know it's not urgent. Her silence tells you everything. She sets down a folded cloth bundle, a change of robes, and withdraws. You finish the last petal before setting your work aside. You untie your current joggery and carefully put on the fresh one. The colors are deeper now, indigo with a wine-colored sash. This suggests that you may be seen by a higher-ranking lady later, perhaps for a group tea, or perhaps for review. You do not ask. Asking has never served anyone well here. As you finish dressing, you notice a small thread stuck to your sleeve. You pluck it off and set it in your palm. It looks like nothing, but something about the way it curls reminds you of your sister's hair when she'd fall asleep in your lap as a child. You blink, and the image passes. That's how memories work in the palace, like incense smoke, brief, lingering, then gone. A bell rings once. It is time to walk. You step back into the courtyard, this time following a shaded corridor that leads to the east wing. The path curves gently, lined with bonsai pines and flat stones worn smooth by generations of sandals. The air smells faintly of camellia oil. Someone must have recently washed their hair nearby. As you walk, you pass a row of windows left half open. Behind one, a teacher instructs a younger concubine in the proper tea-pouring method. Her voice is low and musical. Hold the teapot with 2 hands, tilt gently, never spill, never rattle. You don't pause, but you do smile, just a little, at the memory of your own lessons. How you nearly broke a porcelain cup on your first day. The court lady didn't scold you. She only looked at you with such disappointment. It felt worse than shouting. Eventually, you reach the eastern pavilion. It is quieter here. A small indoor garden offers cool shade, and the sound of water returns, this time from a stone basin fed by bamboo. You kneel on the mat and wait, as expected. Several concubines arrive, each one bowing slightly before taking their place. No one speaks first. That honor is reserved for the oldest woman in the group, Lady Hyon. Her hair is streaked with gray, but her gaze remains sharp. She has not been summoned to the king's chambers in years, but she holds court here, in her own way. When she finally speaks, it is about flowers. The plum blossoms bloomed early this year, she says. Her voice is even, like a distant drum. The others nod, one murmurs, a sign of early frost, perhaps. The conversation stays in that realm, safe, subtle, never truly about what it seems. You respond only when addressed. You've learned that well. Listen more than speak. And if you must speak, offer something gentle, something that cannot be used against you. You sip tea from a lacquered cup. Its rim is cool against your lips. The tea is faintly bitter, steeped with magnolia buds, a sign that spring is approaching. A bird lands on the branch just outside the screen. It chirps once, then hops away. You wonder if anyone else notices, but no one turns their head. They are practiced. You are still learning. The gathering ends quietly. One by one, women bow and depart. You do too, following the curve of the corridor back the way you came. The sunlight has shifted. Your shadow now stretches long across the tiles. By the time you return to your room, the embroidery is still where you left it, the thread waiting patiently, the needle shining just a little in the light. But for now, you sit beside the window and let your thoughts rest. The stream behind the wall keeps singing, and you, once again, begin to listen. The stream sings its slow lullaby behind the walls as you rest your eyes for a moment, not quite asleep, not fully awake. This is the only pause you'll have until evening. You feel it in your bones, the rhythm of the day, like quiet waves folding over one another. You sit there, motionless, as the sun continues its gentle arc overhead. Then, without warning, you are needed again. A knock so soft you almost mistake it for wind. A courtmaid appears, bowing low, her gaze on the floor. Preparation is required, she says simply, and that is enough. You nod, rise, and follow. You are led not to your own quarters, but deeper into the inner court. This is a quieter wing, reserved for higher ceremony or unspoken evaluations. Your steps are silent on the polished floors, the kind of silence only years of training can produce. When you arrive, 2 attendants are already waiting. The chamber is warmer here, perfumed lightly with lotus and sandalwood. Everything is clean and quiet, as though time itself holds its breath in this room. Your outer robe is carefully removed, and your arms are lifted for new sleeves. The fabric this time is heavier, midnight blue with silver embroidery at the hem. Tiny cranes stitched in delicate rows seem to take flight as the fabric shifts. You recognize the meaning immediately. Cranes are symbols of dignity, longevity, and grace. Wearing them is no accident. Your sash is changed too, from a simple tie to a knotted ribbon of crimson silk, the kind reserved for formal visibility. You feel the change as it happens, not just the weight of the fabric, but the weight of meaning it carries. They do not speak as they work. The attendants move as one, each step measured, choreographed. Your hair is taken down, gently combed, then wound again, higher this time. They add a delicate gold pin, shaped like a blossoming apricot branch. It glimmers faintly in the filtered light. In the mirror of polished bronze before you, your reflection shimmers like water. You are still yourself, but less yourself than before, or perhaps more of what others expect you to be. You've worn these robes before, of course, but each time, it feels like slipping into a different version of your life, one where you are not just a woman in the palace, but a symbol of something larger, an idea, a performance. Your hands rest in your lap as the final adjustments are made. One attendant brushes an invisible thread from your sleeve. Another tucks the hem precisely behind your heels. When they are finished, you stand. Stillness is expected now. They bow and leave. You are alone, dressed like a dream. You take a slow breath, careful not to shift the folds of your robe too sharply. Then, you step outside. The courtyard ahead is shaded by an old plum tree, just beginning to flower. Its blossoms are pale pink and white, delicate as breath. You pass beneath it on your way to the small waiting hall, where others will soon gather. You walk slowly, deliberately. Here, walking is not simply a way of moving. It is a message. Each step tells a story of calmness, of dignity, of control. You've practiced for hours to make your pace seem effortless, but your feet ache already. As you near the hall, another concubine enters ahead of you. Her robes are green with gold trim, less formal, but still notable. She does not look back. You both know your places, even when they shift by the day. Inside, the waiting room is lit by paper lamps shaped like lilies. The walls are painted in faded scenes of cranes and pine trees, symbols of grace and endurance. You kneel at your assigned spot, not too fast, not too slow. Others join, one by one, like petals falling. No one speaks above a whisper. At the center, a table is being prepared, not for food, but for display, perhaps a poetry reading, or a tea ceremony, maybe an informal inspection. Or maybe nothing at all. Sometimes, these gatherings are tests disguised as leisure. A court lady enters, her presence like a ripple through still water. She offers a tray of fans. Each woman selects one, as instructed. The designs are varied: floral, geometric, painted birds. Yours features a solitary butterfly. You hold it lightly, resting it against your lap. You've heard the stories. Once, a concubine was asked what the butterfly on her fan meant. She replied, "A soul," briefly resting. The king found the answer beautiful. She was promoted the next day. You do not expect such fortune, but you remember the story anyway. The fan is cool in your hand. The air around you hums with unspoken tension. Each woman in the room is composed, lovely, unreadable. But beneath the silence is something taut, a quiet storm held back by decades of etiquette. Your gaze drifts to the corner of the room where a silk screen hides the entryway. If a shadow were to appear there, tall and unmistakable, everything would change. But for now, there is only light, only the shifting gold of late morning. Time passes, though it feels like it stands still. Eventually, the gathering dissolves. A subtle nod, a rustle of robes. You stand with the others and file out, one after another, like swans in a line. The fan is returned to the tray without a word. You walk back through the courtyard beneath the same plum tree. A blossom falls. It lands softly on your shoulder. You do not brush it off. Not yet. By the time you return to your quarters, your posture has relaxed just enough to breathe again. You sit by the window once more. The embroidery waits. The barley tea is cooled. The thread still holds its shape. But for now, you look out across the stone path, watching the breeze play through the garden moss. The afternoon settles in gently, like a cat curling up beside you. The palace exhales, and so do you. The afternoon glides by in silence, like a crane's wings brushing against the sky. In the stillness of your quarters, time loses its sharp edges. You resume your embroidery with slow, steady hands, but your thoughts move elsewhere, softly, like wind through reeds. By now, the sun has reached its high arc and begun its descent. Shadows stretch a little longer across the courtyard, and the light deepens into a warm amber hue. The palace shifts again, not with noise, but with energy. The quiet begins to fill with subtle cues. The tap of footsteps becomes more frequent. Fabric rustles. Doors slide open and close with a rhythm only insiders recognize. Soon, there will be another meal. Not a grand feast, not even truly lunch, more a pause in the day marked by warm rice and careful seating. It is not the food that matters, but the manner in which it is eaten. In the palace, every bite carries intention. You change again, this time into simpler robes, cream with a lavender sash, comforting, but still elegant. A maid brushes your sleeves before you leave. It is not necessary, but she does it anyway. There is comfort in the routine. The meal is served in a long, narrow hall near the southern wing. It is quiet here, with only the sound of birds fluttering above the rooftop tiles and the occasional creak of old wood beneath careful feet. You walk behind two other concubines. No one speaks. As you enter, you bow. The room contains several low tables, each arranged precisely. No names, just an order everyone understands. Your table is third from the left, set near the open panel that faces a small koi pond. The water glints in the sun. A single fish stirs the surface with a lazy ripple. You kneel onto the mat with practiced ease, your legs folding beneath you like ink into paper. The cushion is slightly warm from the sunlight, one small kindness offered without intention. The table is set with 6 small dishes, a bowl of white rice, clear soup with radish, pickled vegetables, each carefully arranged, a single dried persimmon sliced thin and placed atop a porcelain leaf. Nothing is lavish, but everything is clean, precise, and beautiful. You wait, No one eats until the senior court lady gives the nod. She is already seated at the far end of the room, eyes lowered but alert. When her chopsticks move, so do yours. You lift the rice bowl with both hands, bring it close to your lips, and begin to eat. The rice is warm and soft, its flavor simple and grounding. The soup is gentle, with a quiet saltiness that settles low in your chest. You chew slowly. Here, there is no need to rush. In fact, to eat quickly would be frowned upon, a sign of restlessness, of inner disturbance. You time your chewing with your breath. Inhale, chew, swallow, exhale. The others eat in silence. The only sounds are the faint clinks of chopsticks against ceramic and the occasional shuffle of fabric as someone adjusts their sitting posture. Even the birds outside seem to chirp more quietly in this space. You look down into your soup and notice the thin slice of radish bobbing gently, almost like it's floating in thought. It reminds you of afternoons in your childhood, watching clouds from the top of a hill, imagining they were giant fish swimming across the sky. A maid appears with a small brass kettle and pours barley tea into your cup. The steam curls like silk into the air. You nod in thanks, though she is already bowing and stepping away. At the next table, a young concubine hesitates before picking up her tea. Her hand trembles slightly. You recognize the nervous tension, the kind that comes with being newly arrived. You remember that feeling well, the feeling of watching everyone else for cues, of trying to be invisible and yet perfect. Your eyes meet briefly. She lowers hers right away. But for a second, you see something familiar in her expression. Not fear, not awe, something quieter. The awareness that this life is both beautiful and exhausting. You smile, almost imperceptibly, not a comfort, not an invitation, just a small acknowledgement. You are not alone. The meal ends without announcement, one by one. Each woman places her chopsticks across her bowl and bows before rising. You follow suit, folding the napkin with gentle precision and tucking it beside the tray. The cushion is left neat. The room is left as it was. Outside, the koi pond gleams under the late afternoon sun. A dragonfly skims the water's surface before vanishing into the air. You pause for a breath. The wind smells faintly of pine and roasted grain. Perhaps someone is drying barley nearby for tomorrow's tea. The path back to your quarters takes a different route this time, through a hallway flanked by open lattice windows. Light streams through in golden slats, casting soft stripes across your robe. You walk slowly, letting the rhythm of your steps settle back into your body. As you pass one alcove, you hear soft music, someone plucking a gaiageum with delicate fingers. The sound is distant and slow, like memory played in melody. It hangs in the air, following you gently as you continue down the corridor. By the time you return to your room, the sun has begun its descent. The shadows on your floor have changed their angle. Longer now, more thoughtful. Your maid brings fresh water in a ceramic basin. She sets it down without a word. You dip your hands into the coolness, letting the water wash away the residual tension of performance. As the droplets fall from your fingers, they catch the light like tiny stars before disappearing into the wood grain. The embroidery waits once more, but you do not reach for it yet. Instead, you sit beside the window again, watching as a cat from the kitchen's pads silently along the wall, tail flicking with sleepy satisfaction. Somewhere nearby, a pair of doves coo to one another, hidden in the roof tiles. And in that moment, with your stomach warmed by rice and tea, your robe softly rustling with the breeze, and the scent of pine still lingering in the air, you feel something like peace, not freedom, not joy, but a quiet stillness that belongs to this hour between obligation and evening, between the weight of robes and the hush of twilight. And so, you stay there, not moving, not thinking, just being. The hour drapes itself across your shoulders like a shawl of fading light. You remain seated, still as a papered lantern in a room with no breeze. The palace begins to shift again, gently, predictably, like the tide rolling onto familiar shores. There are no loud announcements, no bustling footsteps to mark the passage of time. Just the long, slow quiet that says, afternoon has passed, and evening will come soon, but not yet. This is the in-between time, the time for waiting. Not waiting for something specific. No summoning bell has rung, no name has been called, but the quiet kind of waiting you come to know well in the palace. Waiting as a practice, waiting as a way of life. You reach again for the embroidery hoop. The petals are half finished, and the gold thread shines softly in the dimming light. Your fingers move with calm certainty. Not rushed, not idle, just enough to keep the hands busy while the heart remains still. Outside your window, the breeze has quieted. The shadows of the trees stretch farther now, their silhouettes long and soft against the walls. Somewhere in the distance, a door slides open, then closed. You don't look up. You've learned how to listen without reacting, how to stay poised without becoming rigid. The line between alert and invisible is a delicate one, but you know how to walk it. Sometimes, the palace feels like a great body, its corridors like veins, its rooms like organs, each person a cell carrying out their quiet function. You are part of it now, not the heart, not the head, but something gentle, tucked into the flow, something necessary only in the way petals are necessary to a flower. The embroidery finishes itself beneath your fingers. You tie the last stitch, not the thread, and set it aside. The design is tidy and lovely. You feel neither pride nor disappointment, only completion. You rise to stretch your legs, slowly, carefully. The act of standing in the palace must never seem urgent. The floor beneath you is warm from the sun. You walk across your chamber, then open the screen to your tiny side garden. It is no more than a few flagstones, a crooked pine, and a scattering of moss. But it is yours. Or rather, it is where you are allowed to breathe a little more deeply. You kneel at the threshold, not fully stepping outside. That would not be permitted without escort. But you sit near enough to feel the coolness of the evening air brushing your face. A cicada hums in the distance, then another, then silence again. You watch a leaf fall from the pine tree. It spins slowly, caught in its own gentle descent, then lands without a sound. You wonder briefly where the leaf began its journey, and whether it knew this was the day it would let go. Waiting is a lot like that. You think about time in strange ways here, not in minutes or hours, not in schedules or clocks, but in gestures, in silences, in the tilt of someone's head, in the length of a pause before tea is poured. You once heard an older concubine describe palace time as breathing through silk. You didn't understand then. Now you do. The days here are both heavy and light, weighted with expectation, but drifting in slow, endless repetition. Your thoughts begin to drift again. You remember your mother's voice, not the words, just the sound of it, humming to herself while hanging herbs to dry. You remember the roughness of your father's hands as he guided yours along a rice stalk. You remember the way your little brother used to fall asleep with one foot hanging off the mat, as if he needed to be halfway out of the world to rest. You do not allow yourself these memories often, but sometimes, when the waiting stretches too long, they come. Not as longing, exactly. More like echoes. The light shifts again. A soft knock breaks the moment. You turn. Another court lady bows just outside the door. You may prepare for the evening, she says quietly. You rise without question. Evening means another change of robes, not because they are stained, not because they are needed for warmth, but because this is how the court moves through the day, by changing colors, textures, weights. The garments are a kind of hourglass, a way to feel the passage of time on your skin. You return to your dressing area. Tonight's robe is softer, more fluid, cloud-colored silk with a faint sheen. Your hair remains pinned, but a lighter pin is used now, carved of wood instead of gold. Evening doesn't require display. It requires ease. As the attendants adjust your sleeves, you catch a glimpse of your face in the mirror. Not a full reflection, just a sliver, enough to see your own eyes. They look calm, almost serene, but behind them, a kind of still-burning ember remains. Not desire, not rebellion, just a quiet, steady knowing. You are here, and you are still you. The final tie is made, and you bow in thanks. Alone again, you step out into the hallway. The corridor is quieter now, the air a little cooler. Candles flicker along the wall in ceramic holders shaped like blooming flowers. Their light wavers with the softest wind, painting golden shadows on the floor. You make your way toward the evening parlor, not for a gathering, not yet. Just to be present, to be seen. Sometimes, that is the entire purpose of the evening, not to speak, not to do, but simply to exist in full view. You pass another concubine along the way. Her gaze lifts, then lowers. A nod, the briefest recognition of shared existence. You return it with equal weight, neither cold nor warm, but enough. As you enter the parlor, you take your place by the window. The garden outside is bathed in twilight. The sky has turned to watercolor, blue dissolving into rose, into violet, into shadow. You fold your hands in your lap. You breathe in. You wait. The twilight deepens, brushing the sky with velvet blue. A single star appears above the roofline, faint and steady. Below, the palace exhales into evening, the breath of a long day folding into the hush of nightfall. Candles flicker behind paper screens. The breeze grows cooler. The parlor hums softly with the presence of other women gathering, not summoned, just gathered, like petals drifting to the same corner of a garden. You remain seated by the window for a while longer. The scent of jasmine has begun to replace the warmth of pine, curling around your senses in slow, delicate spirals. You feel it settle in your collar, your sleeves, your hair. Then comes the motion you've been waiting for. Not a bell, not a call, but a glance. A court lady, moving with deliberate subtlety, offers the smallest nod in your direction. That's enough. It means now is a good time. You rise, smooth your robe, and make your way through the dim corridor toward the outer garden. This one is more open than your private patch of moss and pine. It's still enclosed by high walls, but it holds a kind of collective intimacy, a place where voices are allowed to rise just slightly above a whisper. By the time you arrive, a few other concubines are already there. You recognize them not by their names, which are rarely spoken aloud, but by their colors, their manner, their tempo of movement. One sits beneath the flowering lotus vines, fingers combing through strands of her hair. Another leans back on her elbows, letting her robe pool softly around her. They glance at you, but say nothing. Yet, you find your place near the pond's edge, on a low bench carved from stone and smoothed by decades of use. The air here feels different, less controlled, more alive. The lotus flowers, half closed for the evening, float gently on the surface of the pond, their round leaves catching the moonlight like tiny boats. A frog chirps once, then falls silent. A cicada sings from somewhere nearby, then is answered by another. The garden breathes. Eventually, someone speaks. She cried again this morning. The first voice murmurs, low and laced with amusement. Lady Yoon, third courtyard. Her poetry was rejected. There's a pause, then a small chuckle from another woman. Again? That's the second time this month. Perhaps she should try something less abstract. The group smiles, just barely. These exchanges are like tea, light, slightly bitter, but warming if taken slowly. You say nothing yet. You watch the water. Then another voice, softer now, speaks your name, not your birth name, not even your palace title, just the name you were given here, a syllable that feels both yours and not. She doesn't ask a question. She simply lets it hang in the air, an invitation. You accept it with a quiet smile. I heard, you begin, that the Queen Mother dismissed her new seamstress after just 2 days. Someone gasps, dramatically but gently. 2 days? She sewed the wrong flower pattern, you reply. Peonies instead of chrysanthemums. Was that a mistake or a message? Someone asks, eyes widening. The laughter that follows is restrained, polite, but it rolls through the group like a passing breeze. For a moment, the rolls fall away, the layers of silk and etiquette softening just enough to make room for something more human. Not friendship, not quite, but proximity, shared breath, shared knowing. This is what gossip is in the palace. Not cruelty, not danger, though it can become both. Here, it is survival, a weaving together of small truths and safe speculations, a language built in the spaces where no one is truly allowed to speak freely. Gossip is not what threatens the court. It is what keeps it from unraveling entirely. The conversation drifts, like mist across the water. Someone speaks of the cook who burned the morning millet. Someone else comments on the embroidery style favored by the queen this season. Another woman quietly wonders if one of the higher-ranking concubines might be expecting. That last comment is left unanswered. Some things are too delicate, even here. You listen. You respond when appropriate. You offer a half smile, a knowing look, a small breath of agreement. At one point, someone leans closer to you. Have you ever been summoned? The question hangs for a heartbeat longer than it should. You do not flinch. You lower your gaze, as though considering your reply, and then answer with the practiced gentleness of a woman who has prepared every sentence in her head before ever speaking it aloud. Not yet. There is no judgment in their silence, only a quiet understanding. Being summoned is neither a reward nor a punishment. It simply means you are part of the king's mind, for now, and that, like everything here, is subject to change. The conversation shifts again, back to lighter things. Someone recites a poem in a dreamy voice, something about cranes over winter fields. Someone else hums an old lullaby from the countryside. The notes are soft and low, wrapped in the cool air like silk drifting through water. You close your eyes for a moment. It's easy to forget, in this space, that you're surrounded by walls, that just beyond the garden lie duties, hierarchies, rituals waiting to resume. Here, you can breathe a little deeper, sit a little longer, be not just a title, but a presence. But even this garden has its clock. Eventually, a court lady appears again at the far edge, holding a lantern shaped like a peach blossom. She raises it once, a signal, just once. Not rushed, not urgent. The moment is over. The other women begin to rise, one by one, adjusting their robes, checking their hairpins, collecting their fans. The quiet returns, not cold, but familiar. You rise too. The stone beneath you is cool. Your joints stiffen slightly, but you mask it well. You walk back through the corridor, lanterns now fully lit. Their light is soft, golden, like memories made solid. The hush of the garden clings to you, even as you re-enter the formal world of polished floors and watchful silence. When you return to your chamber, your maid is already lighting the final candle, her back straight, her motions silent. You sit beside the small table and exhale. The lotus garden fades behind you, but a part of it lingers. The sound of laughter hidden in moonlight, the weight of a shared secret, the brief comfort of being seen, not as a rival or a role, but as a person who lives, breathes, and waits, just like the others. You drink a sip of barley tea. It is cooled, but it still comforts. You turn toward the window and see the moon now, fully risen, and beneath its silver light, you begin, again, to wait. The moon rests high now, calm and full, casting soft silver across the sloped roofs of the palace. Shadows stretch long and delicate across the stone, the tips of tree branches swaying gently in its glow. The garden is behind you now, folded away like a page you dare not reread too often. But its quiet warmth lingers, tucked into the folds of your robe, pressed softly behind your ribcage. Inside your chamber, the candlelight flickers, its flame dipping and curling in the still air. The hour is late, but not yet final. The palace, ever patient, still has one more rhythm to observe before sleep may be earned. Tonight, you have been selected for a training session. This is not punishment, not exactly, nor is it a reward. It is something in between, an opportunity to be polished, shaped, sharpened, like a stone being slowly turned into something smooth enough to reflect the world without distortion. Your maid does not say the words aloud, but you know from the way she presents the sash, tightly folded, lavender gray, reserved only for instruction hours. You change quietly, removing your lighter robe and replacing it with one of fine but simple silk. The sleeves are slightly shorter, the hem easier to move in. This is not about beauty. This is about control. You are escorted to a quiet pavilion behind the east wing, a narrow space lined with polished wood floors and lanterns carved in floral patterns. It is a place without much decoration, and that is intentional. Distraction is not welcome here. Waiting for you are 3 women, each older than you, each silent as they rise and bow. You return the gesture with equal depth, aware that every movement is being watched, evaluated, measured. Tonight's lesson will be in posture, tea service, and etiquette of stillness. It begins with walking. You remove your shoes and are asked to cross the polished floor at a measured pace. You do so, eyes lowered, back straight, heels barely lifting. The floor is smooth beneath your bare feet, warm from the day's sun. You feel your heartbeat rise, not from effort, but from the weight of being observed. Slower, one instructor says gently. You are not trying to arrive. You are already here. You nod and begin again. This time, you let go of the notion of progress. You focus only on the sensation of each step, the slight tightening of your calf, the stretch behind your knee, the way the fabric of your robe brushes your ankles like a quiet companion. When you reach the far end of the room, you pause, bow, turn, return, again and again. Next is tea. You kneel before the lacquered table, its surface dark as still water. A tray is set before you, teapot, 2 cups, cloth, simple but exacting. Your hands move with the grace that has been taught over seasons, never clumsy, never rushed. Lift with both hands, tilt with intention, pour without sound. You feel the heat of the ceramic through the cloth, the fine tremble of balance between too fast and too slow. The tea glides from pot to cup like a stream through mountain stones. Don't look at your hands, one of the instructors says softly. They already know what to do. You nod, you pour again. This time, you imagine that your hands belong to someone else, A version of yourself who has done this 1,000 times, whose nerves are water, whose breath is wind. You allow the movement to flow, and in doing so, it becomes natural again. The instructors exchange the faintest glances, approval, perhaps, but say nothing. Now comes the lesson in stillness. You are asked to sit at the edge of the platform and remain completely still for one full measure of the water clock, about the length of a candle's slow inch downward. You nod, you kneel, you fold your hands in your lap, and then you wait. The room holds its breath with you. Stillness. Here is not passive. It is its own kind of strength, a kind of deep listening, not to sound, but to space. You hear the wind outside, the chirp of a night bird, the occasional pop of the candle's flame, but mostly, you hear the sound of yourself not moving. At first, it is uncomfortable. Your knees ache, your spine stiffens, your neck grows tired, but then something shifts. You stop fighting it. You lean into the stillness, like settling into a warm bath. And suddenly, it feels different, softer, full of breath, even though nothing moves. You feel your thoughts stretch out and lie down beside you. When the instructor finally speaks, it startles you, not because she's loud, but because you'd forgotten anyone else was there. "Well done," she says simply. You bow. The lesson is complete. You are offered warm water and a cloth to dab your face. You do so with care. The sweat along your hairline is cooled, and your cheeks are flushed not from exertion, but from the effort of existing so precisely. You walk back to your quarters beneath the watch of the moon. The night is cool now, and your robe moves gently with each step, like waves following the tide. The palace is quieter than ever. Most candles have been extinguished. The gardens are dark silhouettes, the trees swaying in silence. Somewhere, someone plays a low note on a flute, just one. Then stillness again. You enter your room. The candle there is still burning, but only just. Its flame has shrunk to a thin thread, flickering against the pale wall. Your maid has already prepared your bedding. You sit by the low table, lift the lid of the tea bowl left for you, and sip the last warmth of the day. The tea is honeyed, with a hint of ginseng, grounding, earthy. It slides down your throat with a quiet finality. You undress slowly, folding each layer with respect, the sash, the robe, the inner lining, each piece set aside like a memory. You sit on your bedding for a moment, letting the silence grow around you. You think of your footsteps on the polished floor, the weight of the teapot in your hand, the feeling of being still so deeply that your breath moved the world, and you think, just briefly, how odd it is that so much of palace life is spent becoming effortless, while carrying so much within. You lie down. The mat is firm, the blanket cool. You turn once, then settle. Outside, the wind sighs through the pine. Inside, you finally close your eyes. The palace never truly sleeps. Even now, as you lie still on your mat, the wind carries the hush of footsteps down the distant corridors. Somewhere, a courtmaid replaces a lantern. Somewhere else, a physician is summoned to tend to a noble child's sudden fever. The palace breathes in intervals, soft and steady, like an animal conserving its strength in the dark. You drift on the edge of sleep, not yet claimed by it. Your body is quiet, but your mind floats gently over the day behind you. The embroidery, the tea, the stillness, the garden, the endless quiet filled with layers of meaning. You wonder if tomorrow will be the same. You hope, quietly, that it will be. But then there's a knock. Soft, measured, intentional. Your eyes open before your body stirs. It is still dark. The candle is out. Only moonlight offers shape to the room. painting your blanket in shades of silver and ash. A maid steps in silently, her head bowed so low that her hair brushes her sleeves. She kneels and whispers only one phrase: "The king may summon tonight." Just those words, nothing more. Then she retreats like a tide going out. You do not move at first. The phrase settles in the room like incense, faint but unmistakable. The king may summon, not will, not has, just may. And with that may comes 100 possible futures, and one single path that now requires your preparation. You rise. You do not feel fear, not yet. You feel something else, an energy that wakes your limbs and sharpens your senses, like the moment just before a storm touches down. This is not the first time you've heard those words, but each time they change the air around you. The bedding is folded, the cloth is smoothed, the candle is relit by a waiting maid. Another follows, carrying a wooden box wrapped in dark silk. Inside is your nighttime robe, heavier than most, embroidered with delicate pine needles and cranes. Not too vibrant, not too muted, just enough to be seen. You step behind the screen and change, slowly, reverently, every fold of silk, every knot in the sash, every breath taken while pulling the robe into place. All of it matters. This is not dressing, this is becoming. Your hair is brushed again, though it was done just hours ago. The strands are smoothed with oil, coiled in a softer bun, fastened with a pin of jade and ivory. A single dab of balm is placed on your lips, a trace of powder along your cheeks, not to shine, but to suggest health, composure, presence. You look in the mirror, not for vanity, for readiness. The robe settles around your frame like a pond accepting a lily. You fold your hands in front of you and nod. You are ready. But you still do not know if you will be called. And so, now begins the longest hour of the palace night. The wait. You sit by the low table, your posture perfect, your gaze soft. A small cup of tea is placed before you, but you do not drink it. You are not forbidden from drinking. But it is understood. One should not seem too at ease when the king might summon. Every detail speaks, even what you refuse. Minutes stretch like silk drawn over water. You watch the flame of the single candle rise and fall with the wind. You hear your own breath, slow and measured, the sound of a moth's wings flitting near the window screen, the quiet creak of a branch outside. You feel the weight of the robe at your shoulders, the coolness of your bare feet against the mat, the thrum of your heartbeat beneath your skin, steady and composed until it's not. Another knock. This one is different, sharper, faster, a signal. Your maid returns. She bows deeply, her voice barely audible. You are summoned. Those 3 words. You rise. This time, your feet feel less steady. Not from fear, but from meaning. You are led through a corridor you've walked only once before. The stone path glimmers with reflected lantern light. The night air is cool, damp with dew. Your robe whispers with every step, your breath a faint cloud before you. Every sound feels louder than it should, the creak of a gate, the echo of your footsteps, as if the palace itself is listening. You reach the antechamber to the king's private quarters. You do not enter. You wait. A woman of higher rank appears and examines you, silently. A nod. Then she disappears behind the curtain. You do not know how long you stand there. Time in the palace bends easily, especially at night. Finally, the curtain is drawn. You are beckoned forward. You bow. Deeply. Your hands remain folded, your gaze lowered. You enter. The room is lit with tall lamps made of parchment and carved wood. The scent of pine and ink lingers in the air. There is no music, no chatter, only the crackle of firewood and the soft sweep of robes over polished floor. You do not look at him directly. Not yet. You kneel at the appointed spot, your posture composed. You breathe slowly, your heartbeat like a bell struck once and echoing through your chest. And then you feel it, his gaze, a warmth resting at the edge of your awareness, like sunlight on the back of your neck. You do not move, but you feel the shift in air. You know you are no longer unseen. He speaks, not loudly, not formally, just a few words. You respond with poise. You say little, enough to answer, not enough to invite. That is your role, to be present, to be calm, to be prepared for anything. The moment does not stretch long, nor is it rushed. Eventually, he dismisses you with a small nod. You bow again. Your robe brushes the floor like falling silk. Then you rise and are guided back down the corridor by another attendant who says nothing. The return walk is shorter. Or maybe your thoughts have grown louder. Back in your room, the candle is still lit, the tea untouched. You undress quietly, folding the robe, returning the sash to its box. Your maid helps you unwind your hair. She says nothing, but her hands are gentle. You lie down again. This time, you do not dream. You do not need to. The palace has already offered you its most intimate kind of memory. A moment when you were seen, not adored, not judged, just seen. And in the quiet kingdom of women like you, that is enough to change everything. Dawn arrives gently, like a whisper pressed against the palace walls. The sky bleeds from charcoal to pale blue, slow and seamless, as if the night simply exhaled and slipped into something lighter. There is no bell to wake you, only the steady rhythm of soft feet on stone as the first maids begin their quiet morning choreography. You wake before your maid arrives. You often do now. The habit of rising early has shaped itself into your bones, like the way fabric holds the crease of a careful fold. Your eyes open not with urgency, but with silent readiness. The mat beneath you is still warm from sleep. The air carries a slight chill. You sit up slowly, drawing the robe around your shoulders, and wait. A tap at the door. A familiar face enters, bowing as always. She lights the candle, she draws the curtain, she brings the warm water. Each gesture is smooth, practiced, as much part of her as her breath. You bathe your face, tie your inner robe, and begin the day anew. Last night is not mentioned, not by you, not by her. The palace never names what is better left unnamed. Everything continues forward, as though nothing has shifted, and yet everything has. The robe for today is pale blue, edged with pearl-colored thread. Modest, serene. A choice that signals neither victory nor regret. Only neutrality. You wear it like armor. You tie the sash just tight enough to remind yourself that you are still holding your place. After breakfast, quiet, simple, almost dreamlike, you are summoned, not to the king, to the queen. Her name is not spoken in the same tones as the king's. Where his is wrapped in reverence and formality, hers is sheathed in caution, not fear, not exactly, but something careful, something sharp, like stepping barefoot across lacquered floors, knowing somewhere, unseen, is a crack. You are led through a long corridor flanked by walls of paper and wood. The sunlight dapples in, filtered through intricate latticework. The air smells of dried lavender and wood polish. At the end of the corridor is a screen painted with a crane in flight, a symbol of dignity, stillness, endurance. You bow before you are seen. You bow again when your name is spoken, and only when told to rise do you lift your head. The queen sits across from you, her robe dark like ink, lined with gold thread so fine it looks woven from dawn. Her posture is perfect, her gaze unreadable. There is nothing theatrical about her presence, and that's what makes it so powerful. She commands without needing to move. She offers tea, not by hand, of course. A maid pours for both of you, but the offering is clear. We are not adversaries. Not yet. You accept, you sip, and you wait. For a long moment, she does not speak. The room feels padded with silence, soft but stifling. Finally, her voice arrives, calm, even. I hear you were summoned last night. You lower your gaze just slightly. Not denial, not admission. Just a breath of acknowledgement, another silence, longer. Then she sets her cup down. Some women mistake attention for permanence, she says, almost idly. But attention is like moonlight on water, beautiful and always moving. You remain still. She leans forward just enough for her next words to find you. Loyalty, she says softly, is what makes a woman last. The statement lands not like a threat, but like a lesson. A thread being offered for you to tie, or not. You bow, deep and long. When you rise, she is already standing. The meeting is over, not with fanfare, not with warmth. Simply done. You are dismissed. As you walk back through the corridor, your thoughts move slowly, not in panic, not in wonder, just measured. Like counting stones along a path, you must now walk with more care. The queen has not accused you. She has not warned you. She has not claimed displeasure. And yet, you feel the shape of her presence now, not just behind you, but around you. This is what makes her powerful, not loudness, not rage. She is the shadow that reminds every light it cannot stretch too far. Back in your quarters, the world continues on. Your maid brushes your sleeves. Another court lady delivers a tray with folded parchment. Today's reading assignments from the Royal Library. A set of floral patterns arrives for your embroidery rotation. A single persimmon sits on your plate. Nothing is different, and everything is. You sit by the window again, the sky now bright and cloudless. Somewhere beyond the palace walls, birds wheel over the rooftops of the city, merchants call, children run, dust rises from cartwheels. You imagine the world moving without you, and it soothes you, oddly. A reminder that the court is a world unto itself, but not the world. Still, this is your world now. You turn the folded parchment in your hand. Today's selection is a poem about snow falling on bamboo. You read the lines slowly, out loud, letting the syllables melt into the quiet like flakes into earth. There is one verse that catches you. The branch bends, but does not break. You read it again, then again, and you let it stay with you. The queen's shadow will not leave you now. Not in bitterness, not in fear, just in awareness. You are seen not only from above, but from the side, from behind. You are not alone on the board, but you are still in the game. The morning wanes. You return to your embroidery, your stitches clean and light. Each petal, each stem, each line carefully placed. Small choices that say nothing but mean everything. You do not speak of the queen's words, not to anyone, not even in thought. But the robe you choose for the evening is slightly darker, the pin in your hair simpler, the turn of your wrist more precise. Not because you are afraid, but because you understand. And in the palace, understanding is the difference between being remembered and being replaced. The afternoon drapes itself across your shoulders like silk warmed by sunlight. You sit by the window, still holding the parchment with the bamboo poem, though you've read it 3 times already. Outside, the sky is pale and cloudless. The shadows of roof tiles lie in perfect rows on the courtyard below. Everything is still. Everything is waiting. So are you. Not for anything in particular, just for the weight in your chest to settle, for your thoughts to return to their usual quiet rhythm, for the queen's voice to fade from the air around you. But it lingers, like the smell of pine after rain, soft, unmistakable, and slow to leave. You place the parchment down and reach for your ink set, not for official writing, not for study, but for something else. In the palace, paper is abundant, but privacy is not. Even your own thoughts must be dressed in silence. Still, there are moments, thin, quiet windows, where you feel the pull of a voice you haven't used in years. A voice that existed before robes and bows and silent glances. A voice shaped by dirt roads and laughter and the weight of simpler worries. And so, you write. Not a real letter, not one that will be sealed or folded or pass beyond the gate. Just words on paper, unsent, unseen, but no less real for it. You begin with no name, only today. I watched the light shift across the courtyard, and it reminded me of you. The ink glides across the page like breath. You do not worry about perfection. You let the sentences drift as they please, sometimes short, sometimes winding like the river you grew up beside. You write about the lotus garden, about the way the queen's eyes held more silence than words, about the taste of barley tea when it's left too long and grows cool, but still soothes. You write about a dream you had last week, where you were back in your childhood home, picking persimmons from the tree while your brother called your name from the stream below. You write about the ache behind your knees after kneeling too long, about the strange comfort of repetition, about how you've learned to read the sky here, not in signs or omens, but in temperature, in color, in weight. You do not write your name. You do not sign it. You fold the paper once, then unfold it, and set it aside beneath a book of poems. It will never be read, but it has been written, and that is enough. A knock at the door, not urgent, just the soft rhythm that signals a shift in the day. Your maid appears and bows, then speaks. The royal painter is visiting the inner quarters. You are to attend. You nod. This is not unusual. Every few weeks, a court artist is invited to sketch scenes from the palace, not for records, but for beauty, for memory, a kind of curated truth, framed in brushstrokes and muted colors. Sometimes concubines are painted, sometimes not. Sometimes it is only flowers, or furniture, or the curve of a roof against the sky. You prepare quickly. A robe of soft plum, tied with a charcoal sash, modest but elegant. Your hair is retied, not elaborate, only neat, a single pin, shaped like a cloud. You carry nothing with you, not even your folded letter. The walk to the pavilion is quiet. The painter has already arrived. He is older, with ink-stained fingers and a thin beard. He does not bow, but nods, an artist's greeting. His assistants set up his scrolls, his stones, his small dishes of powdered pigment. You and the other women take your places, not posed, not directed, just seated naturally in the garden, like an arrangement of flowers meant to suggest spontaneity. You sit near the edge of a wooden platform, one knee raised slightly, your hands resting on a folded fan. You are not meant to look at him. You are not meant to speak. You are only meant to be. He begins to paint. The sound of brush against silk paper is soft, but rhythmic. You hear it in intervals, like breathing. You don't wonder what he's painting. Not yet. You don't need to know. The garden is quiet around you. The wind stirs the willow leaves. Somewhere above, a raven calls out, then disappears into the sky. You think of your letter again, not the words, but the feeling it gave you. That brief and gentle glimpse of a self untouched by the palace. You wonder what the artist sees. Not your robe, not your fan, but you. Does he notice the small callus at the base of your middle finger from years of holding embroidery needles? Does he see the slight unevenness in your left eyebrow, the result of a scar you've had since childhood? Or the way you tilt your head when you're listening? A habit formed long before you ever entered the court? You'll never know. That is both the grace and sorrow of being observed here. You are always seen, but rarely known. After a time, the painter lowers his brush. His assistant nods and begins gathering the tools. The scrolls are not shown to you. Not now. Perhaps never. You bow slightly, then rise with the others. No one speaks on the walk back. Later, you hear rumors that the queen requested the painting for a seasonal scroll, that the king will not see it, that he might, that your silhouette is visible near the plum tree, holding a fan like a secret. You do not confirm any of this. You return to your room. You place your hands flat on the table. The letter is still there, hidden beneath the book of poems. You do not read it again, but you slide it a little farther underneath, just in case. Outside, the sun has begun to dip. The shadows return, lengthening like fingers reaching through time. The bell for evening prayer sounds from the far corner of the palace. Low, round, full. You rise to change your robe. The day is not yet over, but something inside you is quieter now. Not silenced, just settled. A part of you has spoken, even if no one hears it. Evening spills across the palace like lacquer poured from the sky, slow, glossy, inevitable. You stand before the window, hands folded loosely, watching the final stretch of sunlight retreat over the tiled roofs. The air has thickened slightly with the scent of incense, the soft hush of anticipation weaving itself through the corridors like ribbon. Tonight is festival night, the mid-autumn celebration. Not one of the grand state festivals. Those take place in the outer court, with drums and banners, musicians in procession, and tributes stacked high. No, this one is quieter, older, more inward-facing, a celebration held within the inner court, a ritual for women, a reminder, perhaps, that even inside these walls, where voices are quiet and movements measured, there is still room for the moon to be admired. You're not attending, not truly, not in the way that means being seen. Only certain women are invited to the ceremonial platform, where lanterns are floated on water, poems are read, and plum wine is poured into tiny cups too delicate to warm the fingers. You are not one of them, not this year, but that doesn't mean you don't feel it. From your window, you hear faint laughter, low, silken, like a secret being unwrapped. You hear the rustle of robes finer than yours, the clink of jade bracelets, the careful steps of women whose presence has been requested, not tolerated, somewhere beyond the wall. A zither sings one slow, graceful note, and then another. You smile, just barely. There is no bitterness in it, only distance. You are dressed in soft ivory silk, simple and warm, with sleeves you can push up if needed. Your hair is tied with a cord the color of fading marigolds, comfortable, unremarkable, perfect for watching, but not for being watched. Your maid brings you a tray, a small dish of sliced pear, another with steamed chestnuts, and a teacup steeped with chrysanthemum, festival food, scaled down, a taste of celebration without an invitation. You thank her with a nod. She bows, hesitates, then speaks. Would you like to see the lanterns? You do not answer immediately, because the truth is, yes, not to be seen among them, but to see them. You leave the tray untouched for now and slip on your outer robe. Together, you and your maid walk silently through the corridor, not toward the ceremonial hall, but to the upper balcony of the East Library, a quiet place, a forgotten place, the kind of place meant for someone like you. The sky is darkened fully now, and the moon has risen, round, heavy, and low. It hangs like a story unspoken. Its light spreads across the tiles and rooftops in a pale wash of silver. From the library's high balcony, you can see everything. The courtyard below is lit by dozens of silk lanterns in the shapes of birds and blossoms. They sway slightly in the breeze, their frames glowing like soft jewels. Women move among them, their robes fluttering like petals, their shadows long and graceful across the ground. The air shimmers with candlelight, and laughter restrained just enough to remain elegant. A concubine recites poetry beneath the arch of a cherry-wood gate. Her voice is even, each syllable floating upward like smoke. A group of court musicians, dressed in deep green, begin to play a gentle rhythm with flutes and stringed instruments. It sounds like water over stones, or leaves falling across tile. Your maid stands at a respectful distance, watching only when you do. You rest your hands on the wooden rail. The coolness of the wood presses into your skin as you lean forward slightly, the scent of wax and wood smoke rising to meet you. This is not your celebration, and yet there is something about being above it, outside it, that feels more honest, like reading a book through a window, like hearing a lullaby meant for someone else, but humming along anyway. Below, someone releases a lantern into the water basin. The floating silk frame catches the moonlight and sails forward with delicate grace. Another follows, then another. Each one carries a wish, though no one says them aloud. You imagine yours, to remain steady, like the mountain, or quiet, like the pond. The music softens, more lanterns float, and for a moment, it almost feels like you're part of it, but only almost. A bell rings, soft and distant. Time to return. You walk back through the shadowed corridor, your maid lighting the way with a handheld lantern. Its golden glow throws shapes against the walls, dancing silhouettes that vanish as quickly as they appear. In your room, the tray of pears and chestnuts is still there. You eat a slice of pear, its flesh cool and crisp, the juice sweet on your tongue, then a chestnut, soft and warm, crumbling slightly between your fingers. The tea is gone lukewarm, but the floral bitterness is comforting. You sit quietly for a while. Then you take out your embroidery hoop. Not because it's required, not because anyone will check, but because tonight feels like it deserves a memory. You thread the needle with silver thread and begin a new pattern, an arc, a curve, a circle, the shape of the moon, the outline of a lantern, the echo of something seen but never touched. Outside, the celebration continues, but inside this quiet room, you stitch your own version of it, the festival no one sees, the beauty that belongs to you alone. You do not need to be seen to witness. You do not need to be summoned to be present. You do not need to be chosen to remember. The moonlight catches on your thread, and for a moment, it glows just faintly before disappearing again into the fabric. By morning, the world has changed again. You wake to the scent of petrichor and damp stone, the kind of smell that tells you the rain has been falling since long before dawn. The air is thick and cool. The sound of it is everywhere, soft but insistent. Water trickling down roof tiles, dripping from paper eaves, collecting in shallow basins like the low breath of the earth. Your room is dim, even with the window open slightly. The gray sky offers no light, only a gentle hush that smooths the edges of everything. The candle isn't lit yet. There's no need. Today begins slowly, wrapped in the wet hush of weather. You sit up beneath your blanket, letting the silence settle over your shoulders like a shawl. You can hear the steady patter above your head, the rain slipping from corner to corner, tile to tile. It's not heavy, but it's constant, as if the sky, too, has something it needs to release, softly, quietly, and without explanation. Your maid enters a few moments later, bowing low with a basin of warm water. She says nothing. Her hair is damp at the ends, and her sleeves carry the faintest scent of pine smoke from the warming house. She pours the water with care. You wash your face slowly, savoring the contrast of warmth against the coolness of the room. Today's robe is thicker, a soft moss green, lined with cotton beneath the silk. Your sash is brown, tied loosely, more for function than beauty. No visitors are expected. On days like this, even the palace seems to give itself permission to rest. You sit by the window, holding a cup of hot grain tea in your hands. The warmth seeps into your fingers. Outside, the garden glistens. The pine needles shine with beads of rain. The stepping stones are dark with water, slick and perfect. A sparrow hops from branch to branch, fluffing its feathers between drops. A small toad huddles beneath a flat rock, unmoving. There is something about rain that draws the past forward. Perhaps it's the rhythm, or the stillness between the drops, or the way the water smooths everything until memory slips through like a thread pulled gently from old fabric. You don't mean to remember, but you do. Your childhood house had a wooden roof that sang when it rained. Not like this soft patter, but louder, sharper, musical. You used to lie awake and listen, counting the seconds between bursts. Sometimes, you'd crawl to the window and press your forehead against the cold glass just to watch the water race down the hill outside. Your mother's hands always smelled like garlic and ash on rainy days. She'd hum while slicing roots, while stirring the soup pot. You remember one afternoon, barefoot on the kitchen floor, balancing on one foot just to make your younger brother laugh. You fell. He laughed anyway. It's strange. What stays? You never expected to miss the sound of rain on that old roof. And yet here you are, half a life away, watching it fall on curved tiles, inside a palace that hums with restraint. And you miss it, not with pain, not even with longing, just with acknowledgement. The rain continues. You pick up your embroidery again. Today, no one will come, no summons, no formal inspections. Even the queen likely keeps to her chambers on days like this. There's no advantage in being seen when everything is wrapped in damp air and gray light. So you stitch, silver thread again. Not the moon this time, but ripples. You begin with a single ring, widening it outward in soft curves, each one touching the last, each stitch a small echo. You don't need a pattern. You let the memory guide your fingers. The sound of droplets falling into still water, over and over. Your maid brings your midday meal, porridge with chestnut, warm and simple, pickled radish on a lacquered tray, a steamed bun filled with red bean. You eat slowly, spoon by spoon, with the rain still singing at your back. Later, you walk to the edge of the veranda just to watch it fall. You don't step out, but you kneel beside the doorway, holding the sleeve of your robe up slightly so it doesn't touch the damp floor. The garden is so still. Even the birds are quiet now, taking shelter in the deeper parts of the trees. The rain has lessened into mist. From the corner of the courtyard, you see one of the older court ladies walking under a covered hallway. Her pace is slow. Her hands are behind her back. She wears navy blue, and her shoes are worn smooth from years of movement. She sees you, but does not stop. She only nods. Once, as she passes, you return it, silently. There's no need for more. That, too, is a kind of conversation. Back in your room, the candle has been lit. Its small flame reflects off the dark wood of your table. You write nothing today, not even an unsent letter. Some thoughts don't need to become words. Instead, you sit quietly with your stitching. The ripples grow. The pattern is soft and uneven, like real water. Not perfect, not even, but true. You think briefly of the women in the ceremonial halls, in the bright rooms filled with fans and poetry and whispered ambition. You wonder if they, too, pause on days like this. You think of the king, of the queen, of the others. You don't envy them. Not today. There is a gift in not being expected. in being left alone with the weather and your breath and the steady echo of needle to cloth. The day folds itself into evening slowly, like a scroll being rolled with care. The candle shortens, the sky deepens, the rain quiets. By the time your maid returns to fold your robe and prepare your bedding, the sound outside has faded to almost nothing. Only the occasional drip remains, like the very last note of a song you didn't realize was ending. You lie down. The mat beneath you is dry and warm. The blanket smells faintly of rice, straw, and soap, and as you close your eyes, you hear it one last time, the softest sigh, rain on tile, and silence. You drift into sleep without noticing. There's no sharp line where waking ends and dreaming begins, just the slow unraveling of thought, the dissolving of weight, the soft pull of the night drawing you inward. The world outside fades. Even the memory of rain dissolves, like ink soaking into fabric. What remains is breath, stillness, a hush, and within that hush, a dream begins. It isn't grand. There are no palaces in it, no robes, no candles flickering behind screens. Instead, you find yourself standing on a narrow path through a rice field, barefoot, the ground warm and soft beneath your feet. The air smells of earth and summer grass. You're wearing something plain, rough-spun cotton, loose around the waist. There is no sound but the wind, and the sound of your own steps. Ahead, someone is walking. You don't know who at first. The figure is turned away, their pace unhurried. You call out, but no voice comes, and yet they turn. It's your brother. Not as he was when you last saw him, tall and grown, waving quietly as you stepped into the carriage that would take you to the capital. No, he is small again, laughing, barefoot like you, holding a long stick and pretending it's a sword. You run to him, but the field stretches wider. The path curls away beneath your feet. He doesn't vanish. He just moves farther, as if your memory can't quite hold him all at once. You stop. You watch. And in the way of dreams, you understand everything without needing to ask. He is safe. He is home. He is still laughing, even if you are no longer beside him. When you wake, the light is dim. Not morning, not yet. Only the pause between night's deepest shadow and dawn's earliest silver. The hour where everything is still, where even time seems unsure of its next step. Your candle has long gone out. The room is cool, but your blanket holds your warmth like a secret. You stay where you are, lying still, your eyes open to the dark above. You think of the dream, not its meaning, not its message, just the way it felt, light, soft, like a memory you could breathe. When the first bird begins to sing, it doesn't startle you, it simply joins the quiet, adding its note to the slow returning of the world. A second call follows, then a third. The sky remains dark, but it is no longer the dark of night. It is the dark of becoming morning. You sit up, you do not light the candle, you move slowly through your morning motions, folding the blanket, washing your face with water cool as river stones. You dress without assistance. Today's robe is pale gray, barely tinted, like smoke caught in silk. You pin your hair in a loose twist, not caring if the strands stay perfectly in place. This morning is yours. You step onto the veranda. The garden is hushed and silvered with dew. The stepping stones gleam in the faint light. No one else is awake yet. Not in this wing, at least. You can feel the palace breathing, still half asleep, still held in that space between dream and duty. You walk to the far edge of the corridor, the spot where the wall curves and the pine tree grows just close enough to brush its needles against the eaves. You sit there, letting the cool wood of the floor seep through your robe. The air is crisp, clean, and you breathe it in like something sacred. You think of your days, how they are filled with silence and waiting and tasks repeated over and over like verses in a chant. You think of how little you speak, how little you're allowed to say, and yet how full your world has become, not with noise, not with excitement, but with layers, with moments, with glances and stillness and the language of presence. You think of the queen, the king, the maid who folds your robes with the same care each night, the concubine who once smiled at you during a tea ceremony and has never spoken since, the painter who did not ask your name, the girl beneath the lotus vines who laughed with her whole body, even when she wasn't meant to. They are all threads, and so are you, woven into this palace tapestry, not bright, not central, but essential. The sun begins to rise, not in a blaze, but in a soft, gradual swell. The sky lifts its veil one shade at a time, painting the world in blues and silvers and hints of gold. The tiles catch the light. So do the wings of a bird that swoops low over the courtyard and disappears again. Your maid finds you there, seated and calm. She bows and waits. You turn to her and smile. Just slightly, a permission to begin the day. She brings your morning tea. The steam rises like a second dream, warm, fragrant, weightless. You drink slowly, and as the palace begins to stir again, doors opening, footsteps resuming, sleeves rustling through the air, you carry that dream with you, not in your hands, not on your face, but somewhere deep within, behind your voice, beneath your stillness, where no one can see it and no one can take it away. By mid-morning, the sky has softened into a gentle blue, streaked with high clouds that drift like brushstrokes. The rain is gone now, its memory lingering only in the scent of damp wood and the brightness of washed leaves. The garden sparkles. The world feels rinsed and quiet, like a page wiped clean. You've been asked to help with the floral arrangements today. Not an honor, not a punishment, a task, a gesture of quiet trust, passed down through subtle nods and lists without names. The flowers are gathered not for ceremony, but for harmony, placed throughout the palace in vases that match the mood of the season, the weight of the weather, the tone of the queen's breath. You walk slowly toward the flower house, a low building at the edge of the inner garden where arrangements are assembled. Your robe today is pale green, light and fragrant from the cedar chest it was kept in. A court lady walks beside you, carrying a bamboo basket lined with folded cloth. Neither of you speaks. At the flower house, bundles of blooms wait, white chrysanthemum, coral camellia, blue gentian, a single sprig of pine. Bowls of river stones glisten beside trays of trimmed stems. The windows are open, letting in the breeze. The light is soft and slanted. It feels more like a temple than a workspace. You sit on the mat, the basket beside you. Your hands begin to move, not quickly, not mechanically, but with reverence. You pick up a branch of plum blossom, its buds tight, its petals still shy. You trim it diagonally, dip the base in water, place it into a shallow dish already half filled with river stones. One stem at a time, each placement a whisper. There's no instruction, no need. You were taught the unspoken rules months ago. Long stems should lean into silence. Bold flowers should balance gentler ones. Nothing must look too deliberate, but nothing can appear careless. Even asymmetry has its proportions. The court lady beside you begins working as well, her focus fixed and inward. You do not speak, but you move in harmony, like musicians playing separate instruments in the same quiet song. You choose a chrysanthemum next. Its petals are ruffled, but its core is strong. You've always liked them, sturdy but elegant, the kind of beauty that doesn't ask to be admired. It simply is. The vase before you fills slowly, not with color, but with space, each flower an offering, each stone a pause. You add a branch of evergreen for steadiness, for winter's quiet breath beneath autumn's last warmth. When your arrangement is complete, you sit back and observe, not for perfection, but for feeling. Does it breathe? Does it speak? It does, not loudly, but clearly. The language of flowers is never about the flowers alone. It's about time and tone and presence. You help carry the finished pieces to the Queen's private library, a place few are allowed to enter, and only under careful watch. The corridors leading there are lined with old tapestries and scrolls tucked into lacquered cabinets. You walk with slow steps, arms steady, your arrangement cradled like something sacred. At the threshold, you pause. A maid opens the screen. You enter. The room is cool and lined with shelves. Books sit in quiet rows, their spines faded with years. A writing table rests beneath the window, sunlight slanting over its surface. Inkstones, brushes, unused parchment, a single jade paperweight shaped like a dragonfly. You place the flowers on a corner table, adjusting the angle just slightly. You bow. You leave. No one speaks. And yet, something has been said. You walk back to your quarters through the side garden. Your hands still carry the faint scent of camellia and pine. A petal clings to your sleeve, and you leave it there. Let it stay until it falls on its own. Some beauty, you've learned, is not meant to be corrected. Back in your room, you return to your needlework, your mind still half in the language of blossoms. The rhythm of the garden still echoes in your breath. As you stitch, you recall the flowers placed in rooms that no one sees, the tiny vases left on windowsills, the branches arranged to face a particular shadow at a particular hour. You wonder if the Queen ever notices, or if she simply feels them, the quiet weight of care placed gently in her path. It is a strange kind of conversation, one with no reply, and yet it matters. Later, a note arrives, delivered without words, left folded on your table. You recognize the handwriting, a single line. Your arrangements brought a stillness I needed today. No signature, none is necessary. You read it once, then place it in your box of small things. A dried petal, a scrap of ribbon. A slip of parchment with a verse you copied long ago. The moon has no voice, but we understand its silence. You sit by the window again. This time, you do not look out. You look at the small ceramic dish by the sill, one that holds a stem you arranged weeks ago. It is dried now, color faded, petals curled inward, but still it holds its shape. Still it says something, and in that, you feel the shape of your own life. Deliberate, quiet, seen, even if not acknowledged, spoken, even without sound. You sip tea, you breathe, and just before evening begins to settle, you whisper to no one, "Let me be like this flower, strong, silent, and in the right place." Evening returns, this time with the gentleness of an old friend. The light softens, slipping over the tiled rooftops and down the lacquered walls, casting golden reflections across the polished floor. The garden's colors change again, taking on the warm hues of peach and copper. Somewhere in the distance, a court musician plucks a slow, wandering melody on a stringed instrument. You can't hear the notes clearly, only the impression of them, like ripples on the surface of a lake. You rise from your seat by the window. A summons has not come, but you are expected at the outer pavilion for the tea rotation, a quiet gathering of low-ranking concubines, supervised by a middle court lady who observes more than she speaks. These gatherings are neither significant nor trivial. They exist in the realm of impressions, where behavior is remembered more than words, and expressions speak louder than formality. You dress in a robe of rose-gray silk, lined with a thin ribbon of navy at the cuffs. Modest, calming, safe, you pin your hair back with a carved wooden ornament shaped like a fan. Nothing that draws attention, nothing that could be mistaken for ambition. As you make your way through the shaded corridor, your steps are slow but not hesitant. Your feet know this path well. Each tile has become familiar, each step a quiet rehearsal of grace. The pavilion is already occupied by a few women when you arrive. They are seated on floor cushions around a low table where a simple tea service has been prepared. A small pot of barley tea, 4 ceramic cups, and a lacquered tray of dried apricots and chestnuts. You bow, kneel, and join them. No one speaks first. There is a dance to these things, one you've learned through watching, through subtle correction, through the weight of silence itself. Eye contact is brief. Smiles are soft, careful, and always earned. Laughter, when it happens, is as light as wind through bamboo. The tea is poured by a younger woman whose hands tremble slightly as she lifts the pot. She has not yet learned how to quiet her breath before beginning a task. Still, her effort is visible. You notice the sheen of sweat near her hairline, the way her eyes dart toward the supervising court lady before each movement. You offer her a small smile when she hands you your cup. It is the kind of smile that means, I see you. You're doing well. Breathe. It costs you nothing. But for her, it is everything. You watch the shift in her shoulders, the way they drop slightly, as though the weight of her nervousness has loosened just enough to let her spine expand. She bows her head, almost imperceptibly, and her hand steadies on the handle of the pot. You sip your tea. It is warm and nutty, with a faint bitterness that stays on the tongue. The cups are plain, unglazed clay, cool to the touch, textured with the ridges of the potter's fingers. You trace one with your thumb while the other speaks softly about garden changes, the queen's latest garment color, and whether the autumn silkworm harvest will come early this year. You contribute little, but when you do, you speak carefully, not too much, not too little, just enough to place yourself gently in the fabric of the conversation. A comment about the leaves turning faster than last year, a question about a new embroidery pattern, a polite echo of someone else's observation, and always, the smile. Not constant, just timed, at moments where it can give someone else ease. You've learned this skill well, this quiet gift. A smile that says, I mean no threat. I understand your silence. I offer nothing but peace. It is not manipulation. It is not flattery. It is a form of diplomacy, one that women here must master if they wish to move safely between shadows. The supervising court lady notices. She always does. Her gaze rests on you longer than the others. She says nothing, but when the gathering ends, she speaks your name, not to command, but to request. Walk with me. You bow, then follow her into the inner garden. She moves slowly, her hands clasped behind her back, her robe trailing slightly behind her. The sun glints off the curved tiles of the pavilion roof, turning them briefly to bronze. A dragonfly buzzes past and lands on a reed near the pond. The air smells of moss and dry leaves. You've become quite good at reading the room, she says, finally. You say nothing. You know this is not a question. Smiles are a language, she continues. Used too often, and they lose their meaning. Withheld too long, and they grow sharp. But yours. She stops walking and looks at you. Yours are well timed. You bow your head slightly. You are being watched, she adds, more quietly now. Not just by me, not just by the queen. A pause. Continue as you are, and then she walks away. You stand there, listening to her footsteps fade along the pebbled path. You breathe in slowly. Let the air fill your lungs, then leave you again, just as calmly. You return to your room as the sky deepens into lavender. A few clouds hang low on the horizon, glowing with the last pink light of day. The wind has picked up slightly, rustling through the garden leaves like fingers running over silk. Inside, your maid prepares your evening tea and folds your day robe with care. The wooden hairpin is placed back in its case. The candle is lit. You sit quietly for a moment, watching the shadows on the wall. Then you smile, not for anyone, not for approval, just for yourself. Because you've learned that even here, in a world of hierarchy and silence, there is a kind of strength and gentleness, a kind of dignity and softness, a kind of language in the things that are never said aloud. And sometimes, the smallest smile can mean, I am still here. I am still whole. And I am learning how to stay. The following morning arrives on a whisper. The first light of day glides in beneath the lattice of your window, soft as breath against your cheek. The air is cool and clean again, fresh from yesterday's passing wind. Outside, the garden is quiet. Even the birds take their time. You sit for a while beneath your blanket, listening to the hush of the hour when the palace barely stirs. It is the perfect hour for stillness, for reflection, or, as it happens today, for a quiet knock at your door. It is your maid, her voice low as she steps inside. The physician will visit you this morning. You nod, calm, but a ripple moves beneath your skin. A visit from the court healer is not a punishment, nor is it a cause for alarm. It is part of the cycle, part of the palace's rhythm. Concubines are visited in quiet rotation, checked, observed, cared for in ways both seen and unseen. Still, the moment carries weight. You rise without speaking, letting the quiet fold around you as your maid lays out a fresh robe, soft blue, lined with cream cotton. Your hair is pinned back, loose and tidy. No cosmetics today, no decoration. This moment belongs to the body, not to the face. The healer arrives shortly after the sun lifts above the courtyard wall. He is older, gray at the temples, his eyes alert but not unkind. He bows, a formality more practiced than necessary, and steps inside with his assistant, a younger man carrying a satchel of cloth-wrapped instruments and a lacquered tray holding a teapot and a tiny brush. You kneel, palms on your thighs, head slightly bowed. There are no pleasantries. The healer knows this is not a social visit. He begins with your pulse, 2 fingers, placed gently at your wrist. His touch is light but steady. He closes his eyes as he counts, the muscles of his face relaxing as though listening to a slow song only he can hear. Your breath stays even. Next comes the tongue, examined under lamplight, then your skin, then your eyes. You answer his question simply. No discomfort, no dizziness. Sleep is consistent. Appetite is unchanged. He nods, but his expression says more. He sees things you don't say, that you haven't said, that you maybe didn't know how to say. He gestures for his assistant to prepare a draft, something warm, something nourishing, a blend of dried jujube, angelica root, and golden thread. Not because you are ill, but because strength, in this life, is something that must be replenished quietly, before anyone else notices it's fading. You sip the draft slowly. It is bitter, but it settles in your chest like calm. The healer watches you a moment longer. Then, unexpectedly, he speaks. You are holding too much tension behind your eyes. His voice is soft, but direct. You blink, unsure how to respond. Sleep comes easily to those who are at peace, he says. But even dreams can be tight when the body is too quiet. He doesn't wait for an answer. Instead, he opens his satchel once more and removes a small bundle, a smooth stone wrapped in cloth, polished to a gentle shine. He hands it to you. For your forehead, he says. At night. You bow, receiving it with both hands. Then he rises, another bow, another exit, no farewell, only the sound of his sandals brushing the floorboards, fading down the corridor. You sit in silence, holding the stone. It is cool to the touch, but it warms slowly against your skin. Your maid returns, quiet as ever, and helps you fold the examination mat away. She does not ask what was said. She does not look at the stone in your hand, but she moves a little more gently than usual, as if sensing that something invisible has shifted in the air. You spend the rest of the morning inside. There is no embroidery today, no tea service, no errands through the garden, just stillness. You sit at your table and write, though not a letter this time, only thoughts, scattered, simple, a sentence here, a fragment there, things you have not said aloud. The healer sees what I do not. I feel safest when I am unnoticed. Some days I smile without knowing if I mean it. The ink runs a little on the page. The brush is old. You let it blur. There's beauty in it, somehow, the way meaning can soften without disappearing. By afternoon, the clouds return, not heavy, not dark, just enough to pull the light into quiet grays and make the world feel like a room with drawn curtains. You rest your forehead against the cool stone for the first time. It feels like a fingertip pressing gently on your thoughts, asking them to slow down. You close your eyes, and for a moment, there is no palace, no court, no position to hold, no image to protect, just your breath, and your body, and the knowledge that someone has seen you, truly seen you, and left behind a kindness too small to name, but too large to forget. You breathe in again. The stone stays on your brow, and though you are not asleep, something inside you begins to loosen, not fall apart, just loosen, like silk unwinding from a spool. The clouds thicken as the day wanes, casting a soft gray hush over the palace. Candles are lit earlier than usual, their flames small and steady, each one cradling a golden breath of light. The warmth they offer is not heat, but presence, a reminder that even within stone and silence, something can still flicker gently. You sit before your mirror now, not for ceremony, not for grooming, just to sit, just to look. The mirror is an old one, framed in dark wood, the silver behind the glass slightly faded in one corner. It doesn't show everything, and perhaps that's a kindness. Its reflection feels quieter than the world it reflects, as if it has learned, through age and use, to soften the truth into something more bearable. You gaze at your own face, not judging, not admiring, just seeing. Your eyes look back at you, thoughtful and calm. There's a crease at the edge of your brow today, a faint one, barely visible, perhaps from yesterday's worry, or last night's dream. Your lips are still, your hair, though pinned, carries a looseness now that wasn't there when the maid arranged it this morning. You lean closer, tracing the line of your jaw with your eyes, not because you are vain, but because this is the only place where you can study yourself without interpretation. No rank, no gaze, no meaning beyond what you decide to give. You think of the women who sat here before you, generations of them, each bringing their own silence. You wonder if they saw the same expression in their reflections, poised, unreadable, yet full of things unspoken. Did they pause like this, caught between their own face and the one they showed the world? You pick up the comb resting beside the mirror. It's carved from cherry wood, smooth and worn at the edge from use. You draw it slowly through your hair, one stroke at a time, not to tidy, but to remember what it feels like to care for yourself with your own hands. There's comfort in the sound it makes, a whisper against your scalp, a rhythm older than words. You place the comb down, then you reach for the wooden box tucked beneath your dressing table. Inside, your collection of quiet things. A dried ginkgo leaf from the first autumn you arrived, a silk ribbon that once tied a scroll, the tiny carved bird that fell from the queen's fan and was never missed. And there, nestled among the memories, a folded piece of paper. You open it. It's the letter you never sent, not addressed, not signed, just words that needed a home. I do not seek to rise. I do not seek to shine. I only wish to endure with grace. You read it once more, then fold it back into its place. The paper has softened with age. The ink is beginning to fade, but the feeling remains intact, unchanged, honest, and quiet. A knock sounds at your door, gentle, familiar. It's your maid. The lanterns have been lit in the West Pavilion, she says. Would you like to see them? You nod. Because you remember the night you watched the autumn celebration from the library's balcony. You remember the flicker of floating lanterns, the sound of laughter you were not part of. But tonight feels different. Not because you've been summoned, you haven't, but because you want to go, to witness, to share a sliver of beauty that doesn't need a reason to be seen. You wrap a shawl around your shoulders, a soft charcoal wool lined in pale silk. Your slippers are light and padded. The path will be cool, but you welcome that. Coolness reminds you that you are real, present, still moving. You walk quietly toward the West Pavilion. The lanterns have been placed along the walkway, their paper skins painted with cranes and plum blossoms, some shaped like lotus buds, others left plain. They do not glow brightly, but they do glow enough. Each one holds a single flame, steady, deliberate, small. You pause beside one, letting its warmth reach your face. There's a breeze, but the lanterns do not waver. You wonder what they're anchored by. Wax, perhaps, or simply the intention of remaining still. Others pass you as you walk, concubines, court ladies, a few elderly attendants. No one stops, no one speaks, but you nod to one another in that silent language shared by women who live inside the layers of a world built without their voices. At the end of the path, near a low stone bench, you find a place to sit. You don't expect anything, not performance, not interaction, only the sound of the evening settling around you. A servant places a tray nearby, tea and sweet rice cakes, untouched for now. The steam from the teacup curls into the air, joining the breath of lantern light above. And then, softly, a song begins. Not a song of fanfare or court praise, but a lullaby, plucked on a single-stringed instrument, slow and drifting. It floats through the air like a thread of smoke, winding between the trees and the stillness. You close your eyes, and you let it move through you. You remember your mother's voice, not clearly, not as a sound, but as a feeling, a hand brushing your forehead, a melody hummed while brushing your hair. You were so small. You didn't understand the words, but you remember the calm they gave you. You remember the way your grandmother held your hands and traced circles on your palms while telling stories of women who endured. Not warriors, not saints, just women like you. And now you sit here with your palms open to the night, not empty, but full of all the things no one sees. You listen until the final note fades, leaving a silence more complete than music. And when you open your eyes, you realize the mirror earlier showed only your face. But here, now, you are reflected in something deeper. The lantern's glow, the warmth of the tea, the hush in your breath. All of it says you are still here, still whole, still unfolding, like a lantern lit not for grandeur, but simply to remind the dark that something warm remains. By the time you return to your room, the sky has turned to ink. The garden has fallen quiet again. No footsteps, no songs, just the rustle of wind through bamboo and the soft creak of wooden beams as the palace settles into night. The lanterns still glow faintly along the walkway behind you, but here, at the heart of your own quiet space, only one small flame remains. It flickers from a single candle placed beside your bed. Its light is enough. You remove your shawl and fold it gently, placing it over the low stool. Your robe is loosened with slow fingers. There is no rush now. The pace of the day has fallen away, and what remains is this last breath before sleep, this stretch of time that belongs to no one but you. You sit at the edge of your bedding, the polished floor cool beneath your feet. The little stone the healer gave you rests nearby, still faintly cool from the windowsill. You lift it once more, pressing it softly to your forehead. You breathe, not because you've been told to, not because someone is watching, but because you are here, fully, entirely, in the body that carried you through another day of silence and small acts of survival. The candle flickers again. You lie back, pulling the blanket over your chest. The ceiling above is barely visible in the dim glow, but you know its pattern well, the lattice design, the tiny knot in the wood that looks like a bird's eye, the faint crack that trails like a branch across one beam. You've stared at it for months, maybe years, but tonight, it feels different. Tonight, it feels like a sky, a gentle sky, full of unspoken stars. The stone rests now beside your pillow. You close your eyes, and in that darkness, something stirs, not loud, not grand, just the soft blooming of memory. You see the flowers you arranged that morning. You feel the silk of your robe as you walk to the tea gathering. You recall the eyes of the younger concubine, wide with nervousness, and the moment her shoulders relaxed after your smile, you see your own face in the mirror again, not as ornament, but as witness. You hear the court physician's quiet voice, telling you what your pulse couldn't, and you remember the sound of that last song, threading itself through the air like a ribbon through your ribs, winding everything together into something whole. This day, like so many before it, was made of smallness, of stillness, of gentle things passed between women with lowered gazes and careful hands. And yet, within that smallness, you lived an entire world. No one will write of it. There will be no scrolls bearing your name, no painted fans telling your story. But history is not made only of emperors and battles. Sometimes, it's held in the curve of a comb, in the silence between spoken lines, in the quiet courage it takes to endure with grace, to notice beauty even when it is fleeting, and to offer kindness without being asked. Outside, the last lanterns begin to dim. The wind has settled, the palace sleeps, and you, still and safe within this moment, drift towards sleep too, not with fear, not with longing, but with peace. Because today, you move through a world designed to erase you, and still left your trace, in a flower's position, in the echo of a smile, in the hush of your own heart, still beating steadily beneath layers of silk and silence. Somewhere far down the corridor, a wind chime stirs, a soft, bell-like sound, distant and warm. You imagine it carries your name, not spoken aloud, but remembered somehow, a name that need not be shouted to matter, a name that lives, quietly, in the spaces between. The candle beside your bed burns low. Its flame dances one last time, then stills. But the light it offered does not vanish. It lingers, softly. Like you,